All right. Thank you, Bobby. Phi?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think Vietnam is still the least the country who was impacted least among our neighbors, and even though we have some partial lockdown, I mean it's just only 3 weeks, right? So I think it's not a huge deal for us as a company and for me as a person. Personally, I think we have to before working purely from home, I think there should be a lot of challenges. But then we are forced to work from home 100%. So I feel actually not too bad, right? So it's like Poppy say, it's quite. We do have some very minimal challenge, but maybe in general, I think it's very good and even busier, even more efficient, and of course busier. I have to say, we have to really focus, and there are a lot of calls. I mean, just chit chat calls is really business call, right? But how about talking about challenge? I think as a organization, we have two challenges. I mean, and we identify at the very beginning, and we do our best to fix this. Of course, I mean to some extent, right? The first challenge is to be effective, right? If you work by yourself, it's still manageable because it's only you. But I mean, as an organization, you have so many people, so many departments, and the problem is the communication and the ROS function or ROS department collaboration. That is the more challenging. So you have to do two things. The first is the process, and the second is the culture. The second challenge that we found out and we have to fix is the belonging, the feeling to belong each other as an organization. Although we have like weekly catch up or games internally for that people feel belonging, I do think it's still a bit more for them. In terms of feel, I mean, I'm a part of something, especially for us. We have many countries have a different location, so and not a lot of people. So that is the two most challenging for us as a colonization. For me as a person, I think I miss going out, meeting friends in person, but it's still okay. We have a con Zoom like this. However, I still miss the feeling of sitting, have a coffee with each other. Right? It's very Vietnamese way.
Yep. Thank you, Phi. Vũ?
Hey, so as Grab is it's not a strange phenomenon for us to work from home. Yeah, so we do a lot of calls, we do a lot of virtual meeting. But yeah, the last few weeks has been really intensified. You need to have 100% calls and meeting, yeah, at home. So I guess for me personally, it has been very different, because most of my scope would involve going out and see the guys face to face and the customer, right? And I really wish I could have just a nice gesture like Phi, who having a nice coffee. But usually my meeting would involve a lot of beers and discussion. So yeah, I do miss a beer, to be honest. But yeah, we're fitting in. It's good to be back to the office, and it's good to see the colleagues and also partners that we have worked with for the last few years. Yeah. So it's good to be back.
All right, thank you. Now, the next question is for Bobby. So yes. Vietnam may have lifted its restriction measures, but are things going back to normal, or have customer behaviors fundamentally changed? If so, how?
So pretty much we are dealing with even prior to all this virus or COVID issues. I think primarily we are dealing more with online customers. For example, Topica, we do online education in skilled courses and language and university. So 100% of that is done online. So in that sense, I don't think our customers have changed. It's probably they're more focused, I think, in doing the courses or learning English, for example. Other than that, I really don't think much has changed. And I think in general, for at least for Vietnam, you know, the country, I think more and more people, you know, in a very short span of time, is forced to adopt, you know, this whole online economy, right? Food delivery, groceries, much of the things are also being delivered, you know, by people. Documents, you know, even if you're working from home, you need to do some documents, and you know, and then you know, you go to, you know, to the extent, you know, of using online logistics services, and then you realize that, you know, if things like, you know, if there aren't too much changes, then post-COVID, you know, what's going to change? You know, as Fee mentioned, you know, are we going back to the usual, you know, coffee meetup session, which is, you know, so typical of Vietnam? Probably that won't change, but I think in general, while Vietnam only has about 3 weeks of lockdown, but I think it gives, you know, a really good sampling of how this whole online economy can be adopted and adapted in a fairly quick time of, you know, let's say 3 weeks, than what we had maybe in the last 5-6 years of, you know, pushing for this whole technology startup ecosystem. So yeah, I think pretty much, I think, and of course, you know, your e-wallets and then your digital wallets, your e-payment and all that stuff. And, you know, it's a behavioral change. And I think it's positive in that sense. And probably post-COVID, you're going to see, you know, a much higher adoption and comfort level in adopting the online economy, especially for payments.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The next questions for Fee and Bobby as well. How can startups pivot their business models to address this change in customer behavior?
So let me do first. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I mean, in this kinds of like climate, right? So I would like to clarify there are two things, right? The first is the COVID-19, and some countries, especially Vietnam, has currently until now successfully contained it. And the second one is the very uncertain future. So I think there is the two separate things, right? Because I mean, as if we operate in a few countries, so let's say in Indonesia, I mean, they're still under lockdown and COVID is still there. So we should have a different treatment, right? So as Bobby mentioned, we Vietnam, we face a 3-week intensive lockdown. So I have to say, within 3 weeks, different with like 3 months, like other countries. So 3 weeks is actually trigger the change or maybe accelerate a bit. It's not like fully you have to focus to for a long, even in a few months. So it's a different story. And as he mentioned, it's a good testing, a sample for us to test whether which part of the business or the whole business we can pivot or we can move from offline to online, right? And now when we talk about pivot, I think the most challenge is two things. The first is the time, because it happening is very sudden, so time is very fast. And second is cash. I mean, nobody really aware of it and really prepare for it. It's cash is a very luxury at the time. So time is fast and cash is very short, right? So you have to identify very quickly where you can make a new revenue stream. I mean, if the current one is gone down or gone 100%, right? So you have to identify very quickly, I mean, where you can find that kinds of like revenue stream. And before that, I think before we talk about pivot, I know, I mean, it may be in the later parts of the conversation, we may talk about cash, I mean, researching cash. So, but I think before we think about pivot into something, your first job is to have to do two things. First is to reserve, get cash, as much cash as you can. And the second is to optimize the cost. I'm not saying cut or, totally, the cost, right? I'm saying optimize, because there's some cost. It's really hard to cut, but you have to optimize yourself, and then you can think about pivot. This is my second point. The third point is, when you look at the pivot in your business model, I think there are a few ways for you to look at it. I'm not a master or expert in this kind of pivot, but I would like to share based on my observing. First, maybe you can start with your team expertise, because if you want to do something new, something else, but in your team capacity, your team expertise isn't unable to do it, so it's just a failure. And especially for a small business, especially for a very, very early stage startups, pre-seed or maybe seed round, the team is the most important, or maybe the only important asset of the company, right? So you have to know you are currently doing this, but you have to pivot. What is your strength, so that you can really do something else, something new, right? Better than others people, right? The second one is, maybe you can look at your supply side or your supply, right? What is the advantage, or you can do it, or maybe you can turn 100% around. You can is it possible for you to turn your supply into your customer, something like that, or can you turn your supply into your partners? By partner, real partners, not just partner by saying, right? Or you can look at your cost structure, right? The cost structure is also important for you to look at. For some industry, for example, like travel or tourism, right? So a lot of costs, fixed costs and over there. So what can you do about this? Can you move from transporting people to transporting goods, so something like that. And the last one is the customer, right? You have a customer base, so, and you have to look at, the most mistake I might say also make, and I think is you have to really separate the customer need and the customer demand, right? So usually, the customer have a lot of needs, but they don't have a demand. Demand means you have a need, plus you have money, you can pay for it. So, and especially at this very uncertainty times, you don't have the luxury of raising funds easily and fast. You don't have the luxury of cash to spend for acquiring or in your business at a very large burn, right? So you have to really focus on your pay customer, the one who can really have money to bet for your new service. That is very important, right? So maybe for us, so I can share about it, right? So our customer is, in the past, we serve some industry. So I want to share about industry, right? We have many industries. So for example, in Vietnam, we are really strong at beauty and FMCG. In Thailand, we are really strong at maybe hospitality, travel, tourism. In Indonesia, we are really strong at, like, again, FMCG and consumer technology, right? So what we look at the customer is, now, it's impossible for the customer in industry like travel, hospitality, or tourism to really pay or to really spend the money on marketing, right? So we have to really shift our focus in terms of a customer to the new kinds of customer, which is, really online service that actually take advantage of the COVID-19 or the current customer we really focus on now. So that is, that's not really a pivot in this case, but in terms of customer, there's so many things for you to look at to change or shift your business model a bit so that you can really survive within this short time. Let's say 12 months. So that is what I think for us to look at the customer. Besides, I would like to talk about, customer behavior, right? So now in Vietnam, actually, as I said at the very beginning, so only 3 weeks and people a little bit get back to normal, not totally before the lockdown, but I mean, at least I can see 80% is quite similar to the lockdown, right? So maybe it's not really hard compared to other countries, other markets. But maybe it's not like you have to pivot 100%. Maybe it's a new product line, or maybe it's a hybrid model where you can do your current models at the same time you can have a supported on new business model to add value to the current model so that you can generate more cash. Yeah.
Thank you, Phi. Bobby?
Well, I think Phi kind of answered everything. Okay, yeah, I totally agree with what Phi just mentioned. So yeah, I just want to add point out two examples, right? And so it happened that both are also in the food business. One, a friend of mine runs a chicken rice business in Ho Chi Minh City, and is in District 4. And because of the lockdown and right before the lockdown, there was so they basically closed the restaurants. So he had to very quickly move onto so-called the online model. Of course, he was worried about his business because a big portion of his business is based on walk-in, right, in-house dining. But lo and behold, he's not that is doing better, but is doing all right. And when there's an increase in terms of the delivery that he's getting and how he's able, how he's learning, to basically refine the process of doing delivery, and to the point whereby he actually built, very quickly, web-based, very quickly built a website to help with the delivery and also to service, post-COVID. So that's one. And then, and he's not even a tech guy, right? He's just a guy that makes really great, chicken rice. Second example, in the sense like you were talking about pivot. Everyone knows about pizza 4Ps, right? And and on days sometimes you can't even get a seat, at pizza 4Ps, and you need to reserve at least 2-3 days in advance. And they almost never do delivery. But then because of this period of lockdown, they actually switched it and started doing delivery for the first time. And with the delivery, it actually also came, in order to maintain the quality of the food, and I really speak very highly of pizza 4Ps, and it came with an instruction of how to keep your pizza fresh. How do you sort of reheat, the pizza when you receive it, so that you still retain, the freshness and the crispiness of the pizza. So things like this, sort of resonate with what Phi just mentioned, in how do you face this period of time? Nobody knows whether it's 3 weeks, and we are lucky enough to be only 3 weeks. But then if you look at Malaysia, it got extended 3 times. Singapore extended till, end of this month, for example. And elsewhere, it's still in different stages of lockdown. So we really don't know how long this period could be, or are we going to get a so-called the second wave that everyone is predicting that early countries that open up will get. So I think now we are all mindful of what to do, and at least be prepared. Should there be a second wave or second lockdown or whatever? Okay, touch wood. Let's hope nothing of this will happen. But at least I believe if it happens second time, we're a lot more prepared. On the subject of pivot, in as far as startup is concerned, I don't see that that huge of a pivot, for example, from one business model to the next. I think as what Phi mentioned, is really discovering additional revenue streams, right? And the two examples that I gave earlier, pretty much supported that. Of course, I heard that what I heard was that Klook went into delivery business, whereby, they are unicorn in the travel space, but then because of this period of time where, travel is basically from, this high, and it gets down to zero within weeks or days. right? And so they've actually done a big pivot. Now, is that going to continue on? Is that going to be another revenue stream for them later on? Maybe, I don't know. But for startups, especially when you just start, when you're a new startup, with a small team, first to mind will be, to maintain your cost base, or if not lower it, extend your runway if you can. There was a good article before, put out by a VC that every level of reduction in your overhead, in your burn, for example, represents an extension of the runway for you. And I think no matter what you do, at the end of the day, that is probably the foremost thought of every founder or every startup, right? Very seldom do you see a major pivot from one business model to the next, and that from a time standpoint, it's also too short to really do something so drastic if you don't have a big enough team to support it, or enough money to buy the kind of expertise that you need to have in order for you to pivot. So I think in Vietnam, I really have not heard of anything. If anything else is an additional business stream, really. So yeah.
I think I agree with you, right? I haven't seen any company really successfully pivot in Vietnam until now. But I guess it's not because they are not pivoting. It's maybe because the time is very short and we haven't yet to see the result, right? So maybe in the next few months or maybe next year, we release the fruits of the pivoting from current companies.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby and Phi. Vũ, question for you. As a result of changing customer behavior, some industries are fast gaining traction. For example, telemedicine and edtech. What examples of such industries have you personally observed?
So for the last, I guess, 2 months after that, we have seen probably even a stronger interest from the retail sectors. Yeah. And specifically, I'm talking about even pharmaceutical medicines. And yeah, strictly only OTC, which is over-the-counter medicine, that has seen a strong interest in them going online and even in partnering with Grab. The other interesting sector that I see is the education tech. But then, you're faced with a challenge of moving hundreds of classroom over online, which is a big challenge, right? But there are companies that I would say tech ready and it's platform ready. Then they are in the right opportunity in the right time to sort of offer those solutions to the bigger community in need, right? So yeah, I've seen very interesting shift in the partner that we're dealing with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep. So Vu mentioned telemedicine and education tech. Bobby, how can startups in these industries pivot to capture this rapid growth in overall demand?
Are you talking about in healthcare?
Yeah, either healthcare or education tech.
Okay, very interestingly, okay, in these two industries, it's very difficult to sort of, just quickly do a switch or to capture the opportunities, right? While it seems like, the thing to do or the popular startups, sectors to get into. Okay, these two sectors require very deep expertise and domain knowledge. I'll take, for example, telemedicine. It's not about having, a mobile platform to connect the doctors with the patients, right? I mean, it's quite different from, say, somebody go onto GrabFood I don't mind spending 15, 20 minutes looking at the food and say, hey, you know, I feel like eating this today or that tomorrow, right? But when you're sick, when you have, you know, a regular fever or you have a diarrhea, for example, right? Your first instinct is not to get onto an app and say, hey, let me search for a doctor. You really want to get in touch with your doctor or somebody or a healthcare professional that you know. And if you cannot see this person, you probably want to get in touch with this person so that this person can give you a referral to someone that they trust that can take care of you. And this is, you know, pretty much what is happening, you know, regardless of whether it's online or offline, right? So yeah, in this aspect, I'm going to see a lot of people trying to do that. Medicine delivery, obviously, when you mention Med 24/7, we've done a lot of that. And again, you know, like I said, a lot of our patients in the beginning, when we first started the business last year, they came to the clinic. We've got the good flow. It's getting popular. It's in a good area. For example, and our medical professionals are very well trained. So, you know, our user base, our customers, the patients, you know, are increasing, right? The mothers who bring their kids, for example, or bring their parents to come to our clinic. And what we are seeing really a shift is that such patients are more willing to adopt the online process. For example, over TED period, right? We had someone that lived, they've gone back to the village or hometown, you know, for TED, and they weren't feeling too well. They actually used online to call us, and that provided the convenience and the trust factor above all, you know, that we can deliver our services, right? And for education, all of a sudden, all the schools are shut. Everybody, you know, all the schools have to move to online. Okay, I think this is one part whereby you're going to see, at least within a sector, you're going to see a huge behavioral change in that most of these teachers are familiar with offline. The way they conduct the lectures, the way they conduct the classes is still kind of traditional offline, and you know, dealing with, you know, 20, 25 students, for example. But then all of a sudden they have to move online, and the whole attitude, you know, and the whole behaviors of online, especially with kids, right, is very different. You know, how they interact online is quite different from how they behave, you know, in an offline situation, right? So in this short period of time, while everyone is trying their best to adjust and adapt, right, I still think, you know, there's a huge learning curve for all your traditional teachers at school on, you know, how to create a blended learning platform, right? And when I talk about blended learning platform, you know, it's really not just about let's do a classroom like this and then continue on that experience, because, you know, a blended learning platform actually, you know, takes into consideration the entire curriculum. You know, what do you need to do in terms of a group meetup, for example, and what can you do, you know, when you have to move this to online? How do you deliver the curriculum to the students that you are teaching? So I think, you know, from the offline type of schools going into online, you know, I do hear and see some problems, right? First and foremost, kids are, especially for those, you know, middle school and below, I think kids get bored because, you know, it's not the kind of online experience that they are used to. They don't mind accommodating, say, you know, offline when they're in a class, and then, you know, there's a certain way of behavior, you know, in a classroom. But then when you go to online, it's so different. I mean, you kind of expect that, you know, just like us, right? You kind of expect the kid to sit there for 1 hour and not do anything, right? And listen to, you know, everybody else. It's very different from offline. So yeah, so you're going to see, and I'm really excited about this actually. You're going to see huge change in terms of how education is being delivered, and it's no longer, you know, a niche market where it used to be. Wow, you know, it's cool, you know, do online education, but it's no longer. I think, the big systemic change is when online becomes, the new normal.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Very insightful. Fee, for every industry that does well in this period, many others don't fare as well. Startups across the world are trying to conserve cash. How should startup balance the need to spend money to get money versus cutting all costs and relying on cash reserves to tide over this period?
I think every business at different stages and different industry, they have a very different situation, right? So it's a very large and broad topic, and it's hard for me to make a recommendation. So you have to consider you have to analyze and consider your own situation and make decision. But I think for us, if the way you can consider to do a case or scenario analysis, right? So let's say to simplify, you have like 3 cases: the best case, average case, and the worst case scenario, right? So maybe for the best case, and I guess Vietnam is luckily in the best case scenario. We can get back, let's say 70%, 80% to normal. So maybe you want to take advantage of, if you have some cash and some capital leverage, you can leverage and take advantage of the pandemic. Why other people, they don't have that luxury, and maybe you can acquire more customer and market share. The medium scenario is, maybe we have a second ways, or maybe, in other markets like not ours, but let's say Malaysia, right? So they are trying to control, and maybe it will go back to started to get bounce back in maybe end of May or early June. So maybe at that case, it's only 3 to 4 months or 1.5 quarter. So you maybe want to reserve cash more than you want to spend more, and trying to find some new revenue stream, and think about survival in that rather than spending. And the last scenario should be the worst case scenario. Just imagine just like Europe right now, right? So there's no business at all. Everybody stay home and try to live first, survive first, and not buy anything. So you have to make sure you have enough cash, assuming your revenue will go very, dramatically. And can you really survive for more than 12 months, more than 18 months even? So it's a survival thing. So, and of course, in that case, you have to reserve as much cash as you can. And again, I think the most important is to face the reality rather to get away. Because some people, really hope for the best. Hope, but they're not prepared. So I think we should prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, and face the reality of the business. Of course, will be affected a lot, and your plans have to be changed. So don't expect, don't hope and wait for any miracle.
Yeah.
And I think, until we have the vaccine, like many people say, right? And I think until we have the vaccine, just prepare for a 12-month scenario case.
Yeah, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? Thank you, Phi. We have heard a lot about startups so far. How about Grab? What changes have you seen at Grab, and what has Grab been doing to combat COVID-19?
I get most, I would say a lot of business have been impacted, right, by COVID-19, and then they have, it has hit both the top and the bottom lines, right? And Grab is really no different. We are also very, very impacted. But then at Grab, I think it's in the DNA of Grab to see when there are certain set of challenges, and if they are impossible to overcome, then we set our bar even higher. Yeah? And then therefore we adapted super fast. So we are changing a lot of our business to the new reality, and then we focus on helping our partners, right? However we can and whenever we can. we have seen, in terms of changes, we have seen a sub spike, a bigger demand in grocery, essential and then essential item. And therefore we expanded our super app ecosystem to include GrabMart and also Grab Assistant. And then those are the services that are meeting the demand of our customer. And to sort of, you know, accommodate the spike in demand, we have asked for the driver support, and our driver partner are very supportive to ship over to do delivery of food, parcels, essential items, and they're willing to do so, right? Because there are access capacity in the ride-hailing segment. And then we also focus on adjust our operations so that we can help our drivers and our merchants during this period as well. We introduce and pioneer the contactless delivery, which I can obviously share a lot more during our Q&A sections. So this contactless delivery focus on promote to limit the direct contact between the customer and the one who do the delivery, our driver partners. And right now, I think our main focus is on supporting our partners, which are most impacted by this crisis. We have committed 70 billion Vietnam dong to support our partners on our platform, as well as the home community. And these initiatives are something very practical and thing that we enjoy and feel passion in doing so.
Yeah, thank you. Another question for you. Vietnam seems to be on the road to recovery. What advice do you have for startups who are just getting back on their feet post-lockdown?
I would say the government has done an extremely great job, in leading from both a policy control as well as introduce very strict but very practical implementations of the measurements. And thanks to those measurements, Vietnam is weathering the storm very, very well. So big thanks and big kudos to the government. It will be an interesting challenge for the startup though. And I guess from Bobby and also Phi has covered them pretty well. But I guess I'll urge you to stay very true to any business mandate that you always have, right? These are the things that a successful business do, right? One, they focus on the customer. So please continue to focus on your customer, keeping promises, continue delivering product that is that market fit. And secondly, I think Phi mentioned this point, spend wisely, and thirdly, continue to invest in meaningful partnership that can complement your strategy and therefore together grow with you.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so we have a few minutes left. Let's have a Q&A. I received a few questions in the chat. In the interest of time, I'm just gonna read the questions. So from Raf, I have one question to all. How is it gonna affect the confidence of the customers related to the safety and clean protocols for taxi and delivery service? I think Vu
I'll take that.
This. Yeah,
I'll take that. I can't speak much for taxi business because we are not in taxi business, but I can speak broadly about delivery. So I mentioned earlier on the contactless delivery. We introduced a very strict code of conduct to our driver partners and also to our end user as well, maintaining a good 2-meter distance when you deliver your goods. And prior to that, sanitize your hands, and we also encourage our end user to always wear mask all the time. Our driver partner, of course, they are masked 24/7, But we even go further than that, right? We even went all the way upstream to our merchant partner, which is the restaurant, the coffee shop, all of these small and medium enterprises, to exercise this control as well. So we make sure that all our merchants are wearing masks when they're preparing your food. We make sure that it's sanitized, and we make sure that they are handled in such a way that is cleanness. They're wearing glove, wearing mask, all that, right? So delivery, well, we have received also a lot of positive feedback from the end user who appreciate the measurement that we put in place.
Okay, yeah, and question for Bobby, also from Raf. What do you and Vietnamese people feel after very good results and don't receive more new cases? Bobby?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, so what do you and Vietnamese people feel after very good results and don't receive more new cases?
What do I feel? I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it's obviously great that so far there aren't any new cases. More importantly, well, I believe there are still a few, since last week, maybe 3 so far. But the lucky thing is they are all imports. So that's sort of, kind of expected that if you come back to Vietnam, you might already have gotten infection while you're outside of Vietnam. But what's important is that the spread is not through community, and there isn't any kind of clustering of infections that you see. So I think that's actually a good situation. As long as all of us are responsible, not just to yourself but also to other people. It's a very simple concept, right? First, if you don't gather in crowds, first you don't get infected, but more importantly, you don't infect other people, because with COVID-19, it's not just about the symptoms that you show. It's actually a lot of times people get infected and they don't show any symptoms, and it's one of those so-called quiet killers. And yeah, so I think if all of us simply just bear in mind to practice a little bit more of social distancing, and just sort of ride this wave through, and that hopefully globally this storm is going to calm down, and we can get on with life as how we know it, and or how life can be renewed. So yeah, I mean, for me, certainly I consider myself really lucky that I'm able to still be in Vietnam despite this difficulty. And in the whole scheme of things, I think I made the right decision to actually come back to Vietnam in the middle of March, and basically ride this wave through, along with all my Vietnamese friends.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Bobby. Another question from Tuyến Anh. Startups are mainly based on technology already, but the impact is still high. Can you elaborate on the biggest question right now about business model? How to make quick money during the pandemic? Phi, could you take on this question?
Hi, sorry, sorry to interrupt you, Phi. I have to go right now because I have to jump on to another call at 3. So I just want to say thank you very much to Grab for having me on this panel. Hopefully I've been of help, in my opinion, and very nice to see you again, Phi, and Vu. As you mentioned, we have not seen each other for a few years, right? Yeah. And to the rest, and to the moderator, thank you very much for hosting this. And to the rest of the Grab team, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
Okay. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Session.
Bye. Yeah.
See you.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, dude, and right. So, to be honest with you, very honest with you, I don't believe in a very quick money. That is my honest answer, right? So the first thing, we have to cut costs, and I mean, or you have to use like optimize your costs. Firstly, secondly, I mean, you have to find other revenue stream if your business were affected by the COVID-19 a lot, right? There are two, I mean, that is the inside, right? From the outside capital, you can look at, I mean, you can try to raise some money from other people or other funds. However, it is very hard, to be honest, except for you can take advantage of the COVID-19, or you have a very beautiful role and a trusted network of partners. Secondly, you can try to apply for some of your current banks if you have a long relationship with your banks. But I'm not sure about your business, so it should be a very general answer from me, right? So, but I mean, to be, clear again, that I don't believe in such a very quick money. I mean, you can make some little money because, I mean, good thing take times, right?
Yep. That brings us to the end of today's discussion. A big thanks to our panelists to offer their precious time. Bobby, Phi, and Vu, I really appreciate your time in the discussion. A big thank you as well to all our founder friends who tuned in into our session. Please stay tuned to our social media channels and LinkedIn for more upcoming talk shows and more initiatives we'll launch to support the founders. Before we end the session, we'll just like to give everyone a minute to fill in our feedback form. You can either scan the QR code on the right or go to the link below. Again, the QR code on your right-hand side. Grab Ventures Ignite applications are also open till June 30th. We encourage all startup founders to apply soon. You can apply using the code on the left-hand side. We have reached the end of our panel session. We hope that this session was beneficial for everyone. Thank you very much. Xin cảm ơn.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, and all the best for the founders. Yeah.
Thank you. Come on. All the best to the founder too, guys.